Hi there, this is Kimmy from Scrap Therapy. So I've been having a ton of fun lately with scene stamping and using stamps from Penny Black. So I've done a bunch of videos with a stamp called On the Lake, and then I decided that I had also made this card for Christmas last year. I just love the scene stamping look, and I wanted to make some for spring, summer, fall, kind of some different seasons, just to show the versatility of these wonderful stamps. So I'm using this stamp here called Wintry Trail, and that Christmas one was just beautiful. I did a video of this one here, and so this is a fall looking one with the pretty autumn colors, and I used Distress Oxides on it, and yeah, I scene stamped first, and then I did Distress Oxides, and you can check out that video as well. It's available. Okay, so now I'm going to go one more time, and this time I'm going to use Distress Oxides again, but I'm going to use them a little differently than that last fall card. So I'm starting out with a card. I've got an A2 card, which is a 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock that's cut in half. So if I cut it in half tall at 4 1/4 across and down, and then fold it at the top, I have a top fold A2 card. So that's what I have here. So now the front of this is 4 1/4 by 5.5. Okay, so then I've got a piece of cardstock that I've cut, and this fits on the front here, so it's 4 1/4 by 5.5. I am going to trim it down because I really like the look of this, just how it's kind of seamless, if that makes any sense. It doesn't have any edge to it, right? And I like that because then I can put some cardstock in behind it and make it look a bit more like a picture. Okay, so, but in order to stamp nicely with my stamp, I cut my paper just a little bit bigger so that it's easier to hold the paper on there, and it's easier just to do the stamping, and then I will go back and cut this after I've done my stamping. Okay, so I'm using the Mini Misty by My Sweet Petunia. Just love, love, love this stamping tool. It makes all of this scene stamping possible. Without a stamping tool, I don't think you'd be able to do it. I wouldn't be able to realign things after coloring in different steps. So you really need a stamping tool for this technique. So I'm going to put my cardstock in this bottom left corner, and then if my paper shifts at all or sticks to the stamp, then I can just put it back here. It'll just go right back there. Okay, so I've given myself enough space that I can put some of the magnets on that come with the Misty, and that way when I'm stamping, it clears the magnets, but it gets on the paper, and then I'll trim off the excess. All right, so that looks great. It's all lined up. I had set my stamp on there for the fall card that I had done, so it was already aligned and easy to do a second card. All right, so now I'm going to take, and this one I'm going to use some gray ink. I like to start out with just a Memento, and I like to use London Fog. Another great one is called Gray Flannel, and that's another nice kind of gray color for this. I just do a light dusting on the back, and I don't want this to be too dark, so it's just a real light dusting. And I do this because, well, one, I learned this technique from Heather Telford, who designs for Penny Black, and this is how she did it when I learned this the very first time, and then I've just done a variance of it so many times, but I like having this gray base as well, just because then when you do all the other coloring that we're going to do, if by chance you don't get everywhere, which you kind of don't want to, you get the gray in behind, and so then it makes the trees look more natural, more like there's kind of like a bark, kind of, right, that dimension that we want. Okay, so I've got that stamped on. Now, it's not perfect. If I was doing this for something else and I wanted this gray, I would reload a little bit, and then I would stamp into some of these areas that are a little light. But this is really just to give me an idea of where my picture is. That's really why I like to do this as well. Okay, so then I'm going to use some Hickory Smoke Distress ink just regular distress ink. And I'm going to very lightly just add a little bit of the ink along the edges here, kind of creating a bit of a window. Okay, and I don't want it to be dark, so we'll see if that's even dark enough. It might not be. A little bit there, you can see a bit. Oh yeah, and up here too, so that's good. Okay, and then I'm going to add some more kind of in. I'm trying to add it right here. I'm trying to darken up my trees that are far off. And that looks like that worked. Oh, that worked beautifully. You can see how that's just a little bit darker, right? It's subtle. It's not a huge contrast, but it's definitely noticeable. Okay, and then I'm gonna now take some black distress ink, my black soot, and I'm gonna do the same thing, but I'm gonna just lightly touch along the edge, and it's kind of like even less than the gray that was in there when I did the hickory smoke, so it's even less black. Very, very pretty. Okay, put my paper back into that corner again, because then I know my stamp lines up perfectly, and I'm just going to buff on a little bit more of that black. See how I've got these lines here, these streaks? I want to use my finger right away and kind of wipe those away and buff that away, because I don't want those lines going across my stamp. If I got those lines on there, it would be hard to get them off. Just need a baby wipe. Okay. All right, get my hands dry. And my paper shifted again, so back into that corner. There we go. All right, it looks really good. I like the darkened black up in there. I think it just needed that little bit, because we're going to also add markers. So now I'm going to take the hickory smoke marker, and I'm going to give the stamp a little wipe down because I use black ink last, and I don't want to get the black ink into my gray marker because it'll ruin it and it'll go too dark. So I'm just giving that a light clean. Now as I'm cleaning, I'm careful that I don't move that stamp. If I move the stamp by accident, I need to start it all over here, because I'll never line these two up together again. My technical way of drawing. Okay, all right. So now I've got my hickory smoke distress marker, and I'm going to use the brush tip, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to accentuate some of these trees that are up front. Now as I'm coloring this and doing it, I don't want to do the whole branch, right? You can see I've just done part of it. And I only want to do a small section at a time before the ink dries, and then I want to get it over here and I want to stamp it before that ink dries. It's really starting to take shape. You can see it in here. So remember, you're always working on the reverse. So if I want to focus right here, then I'm working on the opposite side. Nice. So see how that gray is showing up in behind? I like that. That looks great. Now this one here is good, except there's a little bit too much of a line in there. So I want to soften that out just a little bit. Kind of add a little bit of a, yeah, that looks better, right? It looks a bit more natural in there. Okay, so I'm liking this side. I think I'm going to add just a little bit in here and darken that up. And I'm going to add a little bit to these kind of steps, this pathway that's there. Okay, that looks good on that side. Now I'm going to come in onto this side. I'm going to come over here and do these branches. stamp is really sticky. It doesn't normally keep lifting the paper by now. By now it should be kind of getting used to it and kind of buffed down so that it doesn't keep grabbing it, but it does. Okay, so now I'm going to add a little bit of gray down here. Just want to darken that. That looks really good. Nice shading in there. I think I might add just a little bit more in here. Okay, so now I've got this back grouping of trees here, so I'm going to take my marker. I'm going to avoid the trees that I've got the branches on already. Try and avoid those. And I'm just going to add this gray across. I need to work pretty fast so that it doesn't dry over on the one side before I get it stamped. That looks great. Oops. So that looks great. Here is the opposite. So I think we just need a little more in here, and I'm going to come up just a little higher. Kind of a bit of a jagged look there. It doesn't need to be perfectly straight all the way across. That looks nice. That really pulls your eye into right there. Okay. All right, so that was my hickory smoke. Now I'm going to go in with the black soot distress marker and do the same thing, just adding a bit of a black frame for starters. Okay, so I'm going to add just a little bit of black down in here. So I'm just kind of doing a scribbly kind of a look, just to highlight a bit of those trees. That looks really nice. All right, I want to go in here with this one right here. Great. Yeah. Maybe, just looking at it, I think I'm going to come up here with this branch and just add a tiny little bit. So notice how I've used less and less marker. When I did the gray, I used a lot more gray. And now that I'm using the black, I'm using a lot less black. I don't want to overdo the black. Okay. You know, I can see these marks right in here, which are kind of annoying me right here. So that would be this branch here. There, kind of pulls your eye away from it. Okay, that looks really nice. I think I'm quite happy with it. All right, so now that I like that, it looks great, looks like it's done. I'm going to gently wipe my stamp clean. Again, I want to be careful that I don't move the stamp. So I don't want to clean so vigorously that I pull the stamp off of there. That wouldn't be good. The wonder of baby wipes. Okay, so I'm going to dry that. And then I'm going to pull out my Versa watermark stamp pad, my clear stamp pad, and then I'm also going to use some clear embossing powder, and I'm using Wow embossing powder, just in clear. Okay, so I've got my paper back into that corner. I know it's nice and snug in there. My stamp is good. My stamp is dry. Now I'm going to take the Versa, and I'm going to Versa on top of there. Versa the whole stamp. Okay, and then stamp that. Lift, pull that off, set this aside, and now take this and put it into the Versa. Tap off your excess. Okay, so now that I've got the powder on there, then I will heat set it. So I have already done that on another one. And I have one ready right here that I pre-did. Okay, so it's been heat set, right? So you can see the shine there, and that's the embossing powder has been activated and set. So it's now shiny, but it also doesn't rub off, okay? So now I'm going to have some fun with Distress Oxides again, but now some different colors. I'm going to use some worn lipstick, wilted violet, and cracked pistachio. And I think I'm going to have to add brown. I think I'm going to have to add vintage photo as well in there. I think because I still am trying to go with fall kind of colors. So let's start out with some brown Distress Oxide. I'm going to just put a little foam onto my handle. By the way, what I do for the bottom of my ink pads is I put, none of these have it, there we go. I put a piece of Velcro here, just a little dot from the dollar store, and then my little foam pads always stick there. And then that way I don't have to have a handle for every single color, because I've got like 40 or 50 colors, right? Then I can just keep it there, it stays, and then that ink pad always has a matching little foam. Okay, so I've got that with this brown one. I just haven't gone to the dollar store and got more Velcro pieces for the bottom. So I'm going to put a piece of paper in underneath, and then that way I won't have to clean my mat after. Okay, so I'm going to add just a little bit of brown over here. Now when I'm doing my distress inks or any inking, I always start on an outside edge so that that's where the darkest area is, and then I come in with color. I find by doing it this way, then I don't get like this big circle, right, that I'm then trying to blend out. So I do it this way. But you can do whatever works for you. This is what works for me. All right, so that was my brown vintage photo. Now I'm going to also take some of the cracked pistachio. I think, should I? Yes. Actually, no, I'm not going to, because I wanted to do it a little differently for this one. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually set that aside, and I'm going to take some of this pistachio, put it onto my splat mat, which this is clean. It was alcohol inks from another video. So I've sprayed some water right onto my mat, and then now I'm going to use just a piece of masking, put that along there so that I don't get too much green up into, actually maybe this is better, up into my trees. And I'm going to just dip that on top. Ooh, I love it. Don't you love it when you experiment with stuff and then it turns out and then you're like all surprised because you didn't know what would happen? That's kind of this card right now. Didn't know how it was going to work, just had it in my mind that I wanted to try it. So I like that. That looks really good, all the little speckles. So now I could take and I could spray right on the water right onto my card, and then I'm going to heat set that. Okay, so now I want to do the sky, and so I'm going to do purple and the Wilted Violet, the Worn Lipstick, but I'm kind of wondering if I should just add a little bit of yellow first. I think I will for this, just to get a bit of a base. So I'm using the Fossilized Amber Distress Oxide, and I'm going to just come in and just lightly buff it along the, kind of like what would be my skyline, right? Just a little yellow in there. Okay. Now I'm going to take the Wilted Violet, put some on my mat, spritz a little water, and dip. So I want to avoid the bottom because I want this to stay green. I want this to be my grass. Okay, that looks really great. It's interesting how that purple went a little pink in here, hey? So I'm going to just do a light spritz of water. Doing the exact same thing now with the pink, which is called Worn Lipstick. But now I want to focus over here on this corner first. Just tapping it in there. Oh, that's so pretty. I want to get some down there. Very nice. Wow. That is such a fun technique, just dabbing it in there. It's so fast. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to just spritz a little water and set it. Let's add some more purple, some more Wilted Violet over here on this edge. Yes, and I've got a little bit down on there. That's okay. You know, this is one of those soft looking cards anyways, so it doesn't need to be perfect. Okay. I think that is just a beautiful background. I'm glad that I did the yellow first because that really helped it. Okay, and then I'm going to spritz with some water. I'm going to put a couple water droplets on there because the oxides react to the water, so they'll kind of puddle kind of give you this very pretty oxidized kind of speckly look when you add a little bit of water. Okay, let's try it. Okay, so I'm going to actually come back in with a little bit of the vintage photo, and I'm going to very lightly, starting on my edge, I'm going to buff in a little bit of brown up in here because it was looking a bit too white and a bit too snowy. And we're going for fall, not snow. I just buffed in a little bit of that brown, and I think I'm going to darken some of this path over here. And keep this, so by darkening over here and over here and keeping this light, it kind of looks like a path coming in, which is pretty. Okay, so I like that. I'm going to just add a little bit more green, a bit more of that cracked pistachio to the bottom. Yeah, see, I got the green a little higher up in here, a little bit more over here. Nice. Light little spritz of water. And let's dry again. You definitely have to have a heat gun handy when you're using these oxides to get this real oxidized kind of soft look to it. Okay, so if I wanted to, I could just go back in. I think I'm going to take a little bit of the wilted violet oxide and just add a little dark kind of corners to the top here. So I don't have the pad there. Okay, so now I'm going to take the Wilted Violet Distress Oxide and just buff on a little bit in my top corner, just to darken that, kind of crisp up that corner. Ooh, that looks even better, hey? You can see this like yellow in behind. That looks really sharp. I think I might do that now with the vintage photo just on the bottom corner. Just darken that a bit too. Kind of helps frame it. But I don't want to go near this pathway. I'm trying to keep that lighter. Okay. Beautiful. All right, so now I'm going to just gather some more things to continue on and finish our card. So I'm back. I found some stuff that I wanted to add just to finish off my pretty little card. So I took the stamped part and I trimmed it down, and so it is now 3 5/8, pretty close, closer to 3 1/2, and it's by 5 1/2. So then I took it and I trimmed it off, right? So I've got this nice kind of clean edge, and then I matted it on gray, which is 3 15/16, so almost 4 inches. You could go 4 inches, and then I glued both of those pieces onto my card front. Okay, all right, oops. So then I also took some leaves, die cut them out of white cardstock, and then I used some of the worn lipstick and some spiced marmalade because I wanted to add a bit of orange in there, and some wilted violet. And these were all the oxides. And I just take the pouncer, the foam tool there, and then I did the orange first, which it looks very yellow, but it is actually the orange. And then I just add a little bit of the contrasting color, just a bit. There was a lot of purple on that last one. So you can see I did the pink and the worn lipstick. I keep calling them pink and orange. The spice marmalade and the worn lipstick, I did that already, just to save some time because I don't like long, boring videos. All right, set those aside. So now I've got these pieces. I also die cut this little deer, daddy deer and a baby deer and a hello. And I've zoomed the camera into just so that you can see a little bit closer our card, what we're up to. So now I'm going to glue all these pieces on. So I'm going to start with my deer because my deer, I know exactly where he's going to go. He's going to sit right over here. Actually, you know, he should really be on the bottom of the card because, you know, I have a thing about animals just floating. It just looks weird to me. So see this guy? He's sitting up here in these areas, and then this guy is going to sit on the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to glue those two pieces on. And I want him to come off the card. So that looks nice. Okay, and then our baby deer is up here in these grasses. Okay, and then I like to take a block, just a stamping block, and just place that on there and just let that dry and kind of, oh, I've got too much glue. Ah, too much glue. Thankfully, this glue dries clear. Okay, okay, kind of pushes it down. And then I'm going to place these on before I 100% commit. So I'm thinking the hello is going to go there. And then what I'm thinking is these leaves are going to kind of come up and kind of come off from the top was what I was kind of thinking of, just building these up. Kind of over on this corner, although I wonder if that would look, oh, that does look pretty awesome. I think I'm going to put that up there. Okay, so I'm going to glue all these leaves on just to get a little cluster. I'm going to use my hot glue gun because I don't want them to move on me, and I don't want to fight with glue right now. If I use just my liquid glue, then they won't be set in place. So sometimes pull out that hot glue gun because it just is fast. Okay, and then I'm going to use my liquid glue for the hello because that'll just be way too difficult to try and get the hot glue on there. I love the little cluster of leaves in behind. It's just so cute. And then hello. So I would put my block on top of there again just to let that dry. And then I know it's connected to the paper, nice and solid. Okay. So there it is. There is my adorable little card using my scene stamp with the penny black stamp, Wintry Trail, and then just doing the multi-layer stamping and inking, and just so pretty and so much fun. So I hope you're inspired to try something fun and different today, and thanks so much for watching. Please check out my other videos on scraptherapy.ca or our Facebook page, which is Scrap Therapy Prince George, and also our YouTube channel, which is Scrap Therapy. Thanks so much. Have a great day.